Recording. Hi Prashant, welcome to
Yeah, sure.
this debriefing session. First of all, many congratulations on scoring a fabulous 770 with Q50 and V44, right?
No, V45.
V45, yeah. So how are you feeling after scoring such a stellar score? And this was not on your first attempt. This happened on the fourth attempt.
Yeah,
We'll talk about
yeah.
that, but how are you feeling after 770?
It feels great. Actually, I mean, it feels unreal at sometimes, but absolutely phenomenal. And trust me, I've only dreamed of the score for a long while. So actually having it feels amazing.
For a long while you mentioned, and that brings me to my next topic, that you didn't really get 770 on the first attempt. This was your fourth attempt. So
Yeah.
let's talk about how did you went on from scoring 650 660s in your earlier attempts to 770, right? There was a significant jump. I think
Yeah,
the delta was of 110 points as compared to the
yeah,
previous
exactly.
previous last attempt. So how did your journey, GMAT journey, all started? How did you do, what did you do for your first attempt, first second attempts?
My GMAT journey actually started when I was in my final year of college.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, all of my friends were like taking the GRE for MS,
Mm-hmm.
and they attended a classroom training. So I just went ahead with the
Mm-hmm.
same prep company and took the GMAT course instead.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually took the classroom course because back then I was apprehensive of an online course. So I was like, okay, let's go
Mm-hmm.
ahead with this.
Mm-hmm.
And things went well. At least that back then things seemed well. So I went ahead with the course, completed it, took a small break in between, and then to start the preparation from my end. Then I did all the practice revision. Again, there was no data to push me or to help me focus on the areas I lacked in, but just the generic preparation which they offer everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And the official mocks were actually suggesting a high score. I think they were suggesting the scores around 720, 710.
Mm-hmm.
So I was fairly confident of scoring a 700 plus because the tutors there told me that the official mocks are quite reflective of the real GMAT performance.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking, having all this behind me, I took the first attempt and I scored a disappointing 650.
Okay, and
And
there was a delta of about 70 points or so, somewhere around that.
yeah,
Huge
huge
delta.
delta from the official mocks.
So what
And
different did you find in the actual exam versus the official mock?
well, definitely the questions were higher difficulty,
Mm-hmm.
especially in quants.
Okay.
And even in verbal, they were of higher difficulty, but I would say the delta in the difficulty level was lower.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when the questions were so harder and I was obviously anxious,
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't cope with the difficulty level. I was just worried
Mm-hmm.
about the questions I wasn't solving right. And that affected my ability to solve the easier questions also. I mean, the medium level questions, you can that say. And then, that all of that weighed down on my score. So,
Hmm.
650.
So you took the first attempt 650. What did you do
Yeah.
after that?
So I went back to the tutors at the classroom training, and then they were saying that, it's probably the test day anxiety that alone caused the big delta. And I was a little apprehensive back then that how can, the anxiety cause 70 points difference, but
Mm-hmm.
they were like, no, you can just go ahead. You're probably anxious. You can score the 700 or the 700 plus score. So, I just waited that mandatory 16, 20-day gap, and then I took my second attempt and I just got a 660. So just basically the
So
same
pretty much got
range.
the same score, and you did not really, you were
Yeah.
not asked to get an ESR for the first attempt either, right?
No, I wasn't. And I think that was a huge mistake. I would suggest
Mm.
everyone to get an ESR.
That's a very important
No
learning
matter
as
what
well.
your
Yeah.
score be. I mean, if you want to improve,
Hmm.
definitely get an ESR.
And the importance here is that with ESR, you get to know exactly what happened in the exam, exactly what went wrong. And based on those
Yeah.
learnings, you can actually plan your preparation henceforth. So you took two attempts pretty much back to back, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Uh, and then what happened? You again scored 660. So I think you took a break after that.
Yeah, I took a break. So I was exhausted, mentally exhausted, and I
Mm-hmm.
knew I had a few years before I started my MBA journey. So I just took a break. Then, 2020, we all had COVID and then we had to work from home. So I had some extra time on my hands and I thought, let's resume this preparation again. And this time I did a little bit of research and I found another online course which offers like a whole pool of GRE, SAT, SAT, GMAT
Mm-hmm.
products, and I just took them. So with this course, the concepts were a little bit better, and so were the solutions for the questions.
Hmm.
But the main thing which I would say was missing was the data. Data to let me know where I was lacking. Again, my preparation was generic to every other student they have.
So it was not
I was lacking in
personalized or
verbal, so
tailored to your strengths or
yeah,
your weaknesses.
It wasn't at all. It was just a verbal focus plan because I lacked in verbal. So I was just asked to spend more time on verbal, more practice questions, but no specific focus. No specific tailoring to my requirements.
And did you do any sort of strategic review over there to figure out exactly why are you faltering in questions if you are faltering?
To be honest, I was not suggested that by the online prep company, but I was doing it just for myself. So I was creating error logs, but then obviously we'll talk about the error logs suggested by eGMAT. Those are way better. I was doing my own error logs and I was revising them also fairly recently.
Okay, so you then again took GMAT and then you again scored 660?
Yeah, I took the GMAT online this time and I scored a 660.
Yes. Okay.
So again, huge delta from the official mocks. Official mocks were 730, 740.
So again, 70 or somewhere around that.
Yeah,
the delta was always there
points.
and primarily because of the level of difficulty, as you mentioned, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So after you took the third attempt wherein you scored 660, I think this was somewhere around October last year, October 2020.
October last year, yeah.
Yeah. So what happened after that? So that's when I think you again took a break for some time and you started preparing for your fourth attempt. So how did that happen?
That happened? Well, to be honest, I was mentally exhausted. And you kind of start losing hope. After 3 attempts, you don't know whether you're going to improve. But I was sure that I want to pursue an MBA first, and I was sure that I want to do it from a top college. I wasn't going to compromise. And I knew that GMAT is an important factor. I mean, not the only, but a very, very important factor to secure a admit from a top college.
Along with the scholarships too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously scholarships are, to be honest, I was like, okay, let me just get into a top college. Scholarships come secondary, but yeah, scholarships are very important side benefit, right? So October 2020, I was planning to go for the 2021 fall cycle, but things were not going according to plan and code was still around, a lot of uncertainty. So I just decided to push my plans for another year and I was exhausted. So I thought I'll just take another break. So I took another break and then this year I knew that I'm going to apply in this cycle. So in around April 2021, I started looking for courses. To be honest, a little bit rewind. In my preparation for my third test itself, I had seen a few debriefs of students from eGMAT, and I was very impressed with the course. So I knew that if I was going to prepare the next time, it's going to be eGMAT.
Okay.
And so started my journey with eGMAT in April 2021, this year.
Okay, so how did you prepare for your fourth attempt? Because I think this is when you were able to hit 770, right? So what was your very first step when you resumed your preparation?
So the first step was to take the diagnostic mock. And again, which clearly showed that I was good in quant. I scored a quant 49 and a verbal 28.
Verbal 28.
And specifically in verbal, I lacked in SC and CR, whereas my RC was good. So all this data was good.
So the mock itself told you that it is primarily SC and CR, wherein you have to focus most and a little bit on the quant side of the things, right? So after you took the mock, after you got the feedback that you need to start out from scratch, and I think I'll have you speak about that after you took the test, and how did you start preparing for the verbal section?
Okay, so when I took the test and I saw my low scores in SC and CR, I mean, SC I always knew was weak, but CR I was a little surprised. Nevertheless, I knew that I have work to do. And as you mentioned, I started from the beginning. Okay, I obviously had seen a lot of SC concepts in the past with my earlier preparations. I didn't care. I just wanted to start from the beginning. I wanted to make sure everything is done from scratch and the right way. So, and I started off with master comprehension, which eGMAT has, and then I would definitely suggest everyone to do master comprehension. It's crucial. I mean, people try to overlook it, but do not do that. Pay good attention and give good time to master comprehension. And then start with the SC course. I mean, the SC course, obviously everyone talks about the meaning-based approach, and that is a game changer, provided by SC. So eGMAT tells you to follow this 3-step approach where you go with the meaning-based and then the error analysis and then the answer choice analysis. And I think I followed that. I tried. It takes practice. It doesn't come initially. Initially, it's difficult, but I kept doing it, and then it became intuitive, to me.
So one thing that I
Also,
would
I'd like
like
to point
to,
out.
okay, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. In the SE course, I mean, maybe people don't mention it enough, but e-GMAT covers all the concepts. I think I have never seen such depth. Ever. I've done 2 courses before. Never have I seen such depth in SE concepts, and that's crucial again because meaning based is understanding the meaning is crucial. But after you understand the meaning, you need to know what exact sentence structure or grammatical concept needs to be applied. So both are crucial, and eGMAT covers that well.
Absolutely, you're very spot on with that. And one thing that I would like to commend here is that even though you have already prepared for the exam, you have covered two test prep company material already, yet you did not really have that mindset that you already know everything. You got the data, you got the feedback from the data that you need to start off from scratch, and you actually did that. And I think that probably is one of the biggest signs of a successful test taker. If a data is suggesting you something or giving you certain feedback, take in that feedback and act upon it as well. So after you completed sentence correction, you went through all the learning modules. What did you do next then?
So I took the cementing quizzes where I took 3 medium level quizzes and 3 hard level quizzes. My accuracy was pretty decent, but my timing was way off. I was taking a lot longer on a lot of questions. So this is where the help from the e-GMAT support team was crucial. I reached back, I think, to the e-GMAT support team, and I think you were the one who replied back then, and you looped in the subject matter expert Shraddha, and she sent in a very personalized video, analyzing why I'm taking longer, and she told me to do some corrective steps. I did that. I think, to be honest, the exercise was long and it took time, but it was worth it.
It was worth it, right?
When you get those, I mean, initially it's like you have to spend another 1 week on it, but it's worth it.
And that's another very key learning from it, that the improvement doesn't really happen overnight, right? And it doesn't really happen by solving more questions. That's not the key. That's never the solution. And I think Shraddha also pointed out the same thing, that you don't really have to solve a whole lot of questions. Just do things a certain specific way.
Right. Yeah, that was important.
And so after, so once your sentence correction was done, how did you proceed off with the next step then?
So then I started with CR again from scratch because I was not doing well on CR. I went through the course modules, and I think the pre-thinking approach in CR is a game changer again. It's not just that I would probably intuitively pre-think even before, but to make sure that that's a process step while solving questions is crucial. Okay, it gives you a wider horizon also. I mean, it's not always that whatever assumptions you pre-think or the you come up with are going to be one of them is going to be the answer choice, but it helps you widen your horizon. It gives you a better understanding of the conclusion because you're forced to come with an assumption. You're making sure that you have a clear understanding of the conclusion and the argument.
This is so very precise, right? That you just mentioned, that it gives you much better clarity on the entire logic of the argument. And plus, once you have that sort of clarity, analyzing the answer choices becomes work of few seconds. And at the same time, if you're not very clear with the argument, and you will end up spending tons and tons of time on answer choice elimination, you would almost always be stuck between 2 answer choices. This is something that happens with a lot of students. And then towards the end,
the hard questions, especially.
The hard questions, especially, because the answer choices are so tricky, because the argument is so tricky. And then it all becomes a matter of probability. So to have that, I mean, pre-thinking is definitely something that must be done for critical reasoning questions. And I think after that, you again follow the same principle as well for critical reasoning too. You did again few cementing quizzes, few medium level, few hard level cementing quizzes. And then towards the end, I think you did few test readiness quizzes as well.
Yeah, so I did that, and I did the test readiness quizzes as suggested. And I was having a good accuracy. So that went well. It took a while to do all the concepts, but it was worth it. And once I completed the test readiness quizzes, I went ahead and took my next Sigma mock, and my verbal had drastically improved. I scored a V44.
So from V28 to V44, that's a huge difference.
Huge difference, yeah. And also, I'd like to point out, I mean, I was one of them who was just waiting to take another mock because I had put in 2.5 months of preparation, and you don't see the results. It gets kind of, it's on your head. You're like, okay, let me see the result. Let me see how much I'm scoring. But don't do that. Follow the process. Do the cementing quizzes, test quizzes, and then take the mock.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely, yes. Another thing is mock. You don't need just mock tests to analyze whether your prep is going in the right direction or not. There are several other checkpoints. There are several other matrices which are there in the system at the present that will tell you whether you are doing the right way or not. Cementing quizzes, for example, as you correctly pointed out, that your accuracy was in place, but your timing wasn't. So even if that's the case, right? If you're scoring 80 or 90% in across all the three topics, let's say, but if your timing is not in place, if the system is telling you, why waste the mock? Because at the end of the day, you would not be able to do justice to the mock. Towards the end, you will have a huge shortage of time. You'll again end up scoring somewhere around mid 30s, maybe at best. And then it impacts your confidence level as well. So if you know of a problem, fix that and then proceed further. Mock is not going to be something magical. You will get the same feedback again.
In fact, I would say mock, you'd end up spending that one day extra in your preparation. I mean, for those people who are trying to take the GMAT in a short, prepare quickly, maybe in a month or so, every day counts. So you're going to waste a day on your mock if you haven't prepared well.
You mentioned one day and you didn't mention just 2 hours or 3 hours. And the reason for that is you end up reviewing each and every question as well. Yes, right. Exactly. So if you're spending 2 hours on taking a mock, how much time did you actually spend on reviewing those questions?
At least 4 to 5 hours.
4 to 5 hours, right? So you X to 3X. I think that's what the ratio was of the time you're spending on revision. And that is, I think that's the key. That is where most of the magic happened. You don't improve by solving mocks or solving questions. You improve when you learn from those questions. And the learning comes once you review those questions in detail.
Yeah. Right. And I think if you're talking about review, I'd like to point out about the error logs, and e-GMAT obviously helps you with specifically with error log templates, and there are videos on the website which tell you how to create the error logs. Those are so very helpful. So yeah, I did that. I made sure I cleared the error logs. Again, it's important to revise your error logs and see where you're faltering consistently. What are the common mistakes you're making? Remind yourself that these are the ways you're faltering. All that helps. That helps the most, I would say.
Right, and you can actually analyze all of that only when you have documented all your errors in a structured fashion. Analysis can be done on the data, but the data has to be captured first, and that is where the error log comes into picture.
Yeah, so and, trust me, revision is tedious, but it's worth it.
It's worth it. Yeah,
I think revision is way harder than taking the test.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Yes. Time.
And you have to be patient with that as well, right? Because as humans, we want to solve questions as much as we can, because I think that is something we have been taught right from our schooling days, that you solve more questions, you get 88%, 90%, 100%.
Yeah, correct.
That's not at all how this works here, right? So once
a lot of unlearning to do.
A lot of unlearning to do. So very rightly put. So once you were done with verbal, you hit V44. How did you work on your quant section? Because definitely there were certain gaps there. You were not 100% there yet, right? So how did you approach the your quant preparation?
So e-GMAT has a very good quant course as well, I would say, and very tailored. It can get tailored to every student. The best part is they have a diagnostic quiz at the beginning of each concept. So I was particularly weak in algebra and geometry. So I went ahead to the algebra module and I took the diagnostic quizzes. And I was doing well on the concepts, but on the application part, I was lacking. So I went and practiced only those specific files which are required to improve your application skills. And I did those. So process skills and application skills, basically. And I did that for the entire algebra module and geometry. Followed by which I took the cementing quizzes, and I could see that I was able to apply the processes and improve.
And the system was giving you the feedback that what are files that you can skip, and what are the files that you have to attempt as well.
Yes.
So the expert architecture kind of tailored the entire algebra and geometry course for you, or as per your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, and that's crucial because I had already spent 2.5 months on verbal. I wanted to take the GMAT as soon as possible. So if I had spent another 1 month on quant, it wouldn't have been great. So this way I could like finish the prep in about a week or 10 days. That was very helpful.
So you followed the same principle there as well. After going through the modules, you solved
I
few.
took the semantic
You
quizzes.
took the cementing quizzes. You also took few cementing quizzes for number properties as well. And you did not at first. I
Yeah.
think you did not really do the modules, right? Any modules at all. But then
No, I didn't do any number properties.
when you noticed that you are repeatedly faltering in certain topics, how did you mitigate those
Mhm.
gaps?
So I took the semantic quizzes, which are like few medium and hard level quizzes, and I was consistently faltering in prime number questions and factors questions, factors, divisibility based questions. And I knew that I had concept, probably application gaps. So I went back to those modules, took the diagnostic quizzes there. And then again, let expert AI let me know which are the modules I'm faltering at. So I took those, I did those courses and then did those. And you always have practice questions with every course. That's one of the great things about eGMAT. Did those questions, improved my ability, and then came back and I could see the boost. I could solve a lot of hard questions easily now.
Right. And once your quant was also fine-tuned, I think you again took a couple of mocks. You scored really well there. And that's when you were confident as well that you would actually do well on the exam. You went ahead and took the exam. How was your test day experience?
Test day experience was, trust me, way better than the other times because in terms of anxiety. But I think I'd like to bring forward one point, which is a mistake on my end. I took the test on my work laptop against a lot of people. I mean, a lot of reviews online which have told me not to, but I was just overconfident and I took it. I would suggest everyone not to do it because I ended up having to switch my laptop. So on my work laptop, there was a background process running which I couldn't kill, and it was a huge issue. I had to request my proctor and change my laptop. I mean, it seems all fine in hindsight, but at the moment, at that time, I was panicking. I was literally panicking,
I understand.
because
Yeah.
I didn't know whether I'd be taking my test that day. I was thinking maybe $250 down the drain and another day for the GMAT, So don't. I mean, I suggest everyone do not take your test on the work laptop. Even if you think that there are no process running, you never know what's happening. So don't do that.
So then I think you switched your laptop and then you were able to,
Yeah, I
right?
had to switch my laptop. Unfortunately, I had another laptop with me. I mean, that may not happen with others, right?
Right. And when you were taking the exam, were there any sort of strategies that you specifically follow for the exam, for the mocks that you would like to share with other future test takers?
Um, Before the exam, I would always calm myself down. I mean, before all the mocks, also I followed this. I just tried to take a few deep breaths. Think about the concept which I learned maybe in a brief manner, 5-10 minutes, and then I would take the test. But the main thing is, I reminded myself that I've prepared enough and I have the data to back me up to know that I'm going to do well. That helped. And take it one question at a time. Anxiety is going to be there a little bit for every student, but when you know the concepts and when you're able to solve questions, the anxiety goes down. That happened with me. So in this fourth attempt, because I was able to solve questions from the beginning, anxiety actually went down. I was getting, and the more confident I got, the better I did.
So basically, if you have data to back it up, I think the anxiety is more or less a function of, in many cases, not 100%, but in many cases, is a function of your confidence on yourself. And
Yeah.
if you're not doing well, there are a lot of students, Prashant, that who take GMAT just because they want to get done with the exam, or just because some deadline is coming up, and they know that they're not truly prepared, yet they go ahead and take the exam. What would your suggestion be for such students?
To be honest, I was one of them who was like trying to push my GMAT a little early, but I think you were there to mentor me, and you told me that you need to work on these things, you need to fine tune. And it was difficult to have the patience, but I waited it out. I worked on those gaps, improved, and then took the GMAT. So you definitely don't want to waste your time, money, and energy because it's going to cost you $250 every time you take the GMAT. And also, once you don't do well on the GMAT, your confidence level drops.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So don't let that happen. That's, I think, very crucial. Make sure that you're completely prepared. Make sure that you're at the best level. I mean, you don't want to go in even with 80% or 90%. If you can improve another 10%, then wait it out, spend the extra time and get to your best level.
Because you're not taking GMAT. GMAT is not the end goal, right? The end goal is to get into the B school. And waiting for a couple of more weeks would not significantly impact that the bigger goal. But if you take GMAT now,
Yeah,
you don't do well. And then, as you said, it impacts your confidence, right? It's a big blow to your confidence, as I would say, that
yeah.
if you have prepared like 3 or 4 months, and if you get shot by like 10% or 15%, then that 10 or 15% clubbed with the anxiety that you may have on the D-Day can make a really huge impact on the
Yeah,
exam day
yeah,
as well.
it can.
So if you're not prepared,
And
don't
the
take
delta,
GMAT. Yeah.
yeah, true. And I think even delta of 30, 40 points is significant on the GMAT.
Yep.
It's not insignificant at all.
No,
It's very significant.
it absolutely is. It absolutely is. So thanks a lot, Prashant, for your time, for sharing your journey with the
Uh,
future test takers. I'm sure that a lot of students would be able to drive value out of it. Uh, Thanks a lot for sharing your
Thanks for
insights with
having me,
us.
Archit. Thanks for hosting me, and thanks for all your support from the beginning. I mean, I couldn't have done it without eGMAT and without the support.
You're just being too modest. It was
No, no,
pleasure
no.
working with you
It's
as
true.
well. Thanks a lot, Prashant. Bye bye.